The words came out of Marcus Wellington's mouth like poison dripping from a snake's fangs. "Ladies and gentlemen, I have an announcement to make. Patricia named me as her sole beneficiary in her final will." 200 mourners gasped in unison as I stood there at my own wife's funeral, my hands trembling on the mahogany casket I had just helped carry. My vision blurred. The black suit I'd bought special for this day suddenly felt 3 sizes too small. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't process what this man who called himself my wife's business partner had just declared in front of everyone I knew. "My name is Raymond Carter. I'm 68 years old. And what I'm about to tell you changed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and the 42 years I spent building a life with a woman I thought was my soulmate. Patricia and I met when we were both 26, 2 young people trying to make it in a world that wasn't always kind to folks who looked like us. She was working as a secretary at a law firm. I was a construction worker, coming home every night with dirt under my nails and concrete dust in my lungs. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Or at least that's what I believed for 4 decades. We got married in a small church ceremony with 30 guests. My mama cried tears of joy. Patricia's father walked her down the aisle in a dress we'd saved 6 months to buy. I remember looking at her that day, the way the afternoon sunlight came through those stained glass windows and made her skin glow like she was an angel sent just for me. I promised her everything. I promised her forever. For the first 15 years, we struggled together. Real struggled. There were months we chose between paying the electric bill or buying groceries. Times when I worked 3 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. Patricia worked too, always climbing, always pushing, always dreaming bigger than our little 2-bedroom apartment in the Bronx. Then things changed. Patricia got promoted to office manager, then to executive assistant. Then, when she was 41 years old, she took a leap and started her own consulting firm. Carter Consulting Group, she called it. Named it after my last name. I was so proud I could have burst. My wife, the entrepreneur. My wife, the business owner. I supported her with everything I had. When she needed startup capital, I took out a loan against my pension. $50,000 I signed over to her dream without a second thought. When she needed someone to answer phones at night while she worked on proposals, I was there. When she needed encouragement during the lean years, I held her while she cried and told her everything would work out. And it did work out, beyond our wildest dreams. Within 5 years, Carter Consulting Group was pulling in 7 figures annually. Patricia hired staff, rented a downtown office with floor-to-ceiling windows, started traveling to conferences in San Francisco, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami. She bought us a house in Westchester with 6 bedrooms, a pool, and a 3-car garage. She bought herself a Mercedes. She bought me a Cadillac I was almost afraid to drive because it was so nice. We'd made it. After all those years of struggling, eating ramen noodles and wearing secondhand clothes, we'd finally made it. That's when Marcus Wellington came into our lives. Patricia met him at a business conference in 2018. He was younger than us, maybe 45, with that smooth way of talking that made everything sound important and urgent. She came home excited, talking about this brilliant investor who wanted to partner with her, who saw the vision for expanding Carter Consulting Group nationally. "Baby, this could be it," she told me that night, her eyes bright with possibility. "Marcus has connections. Real connections. Fortune 500 companies. Government contracts. He wants to invest $2 million into the business." I should have asked more questions. Should have wondered why a man with $2 million to invest was so interested in my wife's consulting firm. Should have paid attention to the way she said his name, soft and careful, like it was something precious. But I didn't. I was happy for her, proud of her. My Patricia, attracting big-time investors. My wife, the success story. Marcus became a regular presence in our lives after that. He was at our house for business dinners. He called Patricia at all hours to discuss strategy. They traveled together to pitch meetings. New York to Los Angeles. Chicago to Houston. Always coming back with new contracts, new clients, new reasons why this partnership was the best thing that ever happened to Carter Consulting Group. I didn't like him. Something about the way he looked at my wife made my skin crawl. The way his hand lingered on her shoulder a little too long when he greeted her. The way they had inside jokes I didn't understand. But when I mentioned it to Patricia, she laughed it off. Raymond, baby, you're being paranoid. Marcus is gay. He has a partner named Steven. They've been together for 15 years. That should have satisfied me. Should have put my concerns to rest. And for a while it did. The business exploded over the next 3 years. Carter Consulting Group expanded to 5 cities. Patricia was flying first class, staying in 5-star hotels, meeting with CEOs and senators. The money poured in like a river that never stopped flowing. Our bank accounts swelled to numbers I couldn't have imagined when I was breaking my back on construction sites for $15 an hour. But something else changed, too. Patricia changed. She was home less and less. When she was home, she was distracted, always on her phone, always checking emails, always preparing for the next big meeting. We stopped having dinner together. Stopped watching our Sunday night movies. Stopped talking about anything except her business. Patricia, I said one night when she finally sat down long enough for a conversation, do you think maybe we could take a vacation? Just the two of us? Like we used to talk about? She looked at me like I'd suggested we burn down the house. Raymond, I can't take a vacation right now. We're in the middle of closing the biggest deal of my career. Maybe next year. Next year never came. I started noticing other things. Small things at first. Credit card bills for expensive dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Receipts for hotel rooms in cities where she said she'd stayed with clients. A new perfume I'd never smelled before. Text messages that made her smile in a way she hadn't smiled at me in years. Who's that? I asked once when her phone buzzed for the 10th time during dinner. Just Marcus. Going over tomorrow's presentation. Always Marcus. Everything was always Marcus. I tried to talk to her. Tried to tell her I felt like I was losing her. But she had explanations for everything. She was building an empire. This was temporary. Once the business stabilized, things would go back to normal. She loved me. She'd always loved me. I was her rock, her foundation, the reason she could dream so big. I wanted to believe her. God, how I wanted to believe her. Then came the pneumonia. Patricia got sick in late October, just a bad cold at first. But it got worse fast. She was coughing so hard she couldn't sleep. Couldn't catch her breath. I took her to the emergency room and they admitted her immediately. Bacterial pneumonia, the doctors said. They pumped her full of antibiotics and kept her for a week. I was at that hospital every single day. Every single hour I could be there. I held her hand while she slept. I smoothed her hair back when the fever made her delirious. I prayed over her like I'd never prayed before. Marcus came to visit once. Brought flowers and a card signed by the office staff. He stayed for 20 minutes, made small talk about business, then left. That should have told me everything I needed to know right there. Patricia came home weak but recovering. The doctor said she needed rest, no stress, time to build her strength back up. I took a leave from my part-time job at the hardware store to take care of her. Made her soup. Administered her medications. Sat with her while she watched her favorite shows. She seemed better. We were talking again, really talking. She thanked me for taking care of her. Said she realized she'd been neglecting our marriage. Said things were going to change. Then 2 weeks later she had a relapse. This time it was worse. Much worse. The pneumonia had spread to both lungs. She was intubated in the ICU, machines breathing for her. The doctors used words like sepsis and organ failure and critical condition. They told me to prepare for the worst. I called our son James in Seattle, our daughter Nicole in Atlanta. They flew in immediately. We sat in that waiting room for 3 days, praying, crying, holding on to each other. Marcus visited again. This time he stayed longer. Sat outside the ICU even though they'd only let immediate family in. When I came out for coffee, I saw him on his phone, pacing, looking stressed. "How is she?" he asked when he saw me. "Not good. The doctors say the next 48 hours are critical." He nodded, his jaw tight. "Raymond, I need to talk to you about something. Patricia and we have some business matters that need to be sorted out if—" He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. "If she dies," I said flatly. "You can say it. I'm sorry. I know this is hard. But there are legal documents, business assets, things that need to be handled properly." Something in his tone made my spine stiffen. "What kind of things?" "We should discuss this with lawyers present. After. If it comes to that." Patricia died the next day, November 18th at 3:47 in the afternoon. I was holding her hand when her heart stopped. James was on her other side. Nicole was at the foot of the bed. We'd been singing her favorite hymn, "His Eye is on the Sparrow," when the monitors flatlined. The sound that came out of my mouth wasn't human. It was something primal, ancient, the sound of a soul being torn in half. My wife of 42 years was gone. My Patricia. My partner. My love. The next week was a blur of funeral arrangements, visitors, casseroles, and condolences. I moved through it all like a ghost. Nicole and James handled most of the details because I couldn't function, couldn't think, couldn't process that I would never see my wife's face again, never hear her laugh, never hold her while we slept. The funeral was at Riverside Church, the same place we'd gotten married 42 years earlier. I wanted her to come full circle, to end where we began. 200 people came. Patricia had touched so many lives, built so many bridges. Everyone had a story about how she'd helped them, mentored them, opened doors for them. I was numb during the service. The pastor spoke about Patricia's faith, her generosity, her drive. Nicole gave a eulogy that had everyone crying. James read a poem he'd written. I couldn't speak, couldn't get up there and pretend I had words that could capture what she'd meant to me. Then, as we were preparing to close the casket for the final time, Marcus Wellington stood up from his seat in the third row. "Excuse me, I need to say something." The pastor looked confused. "Sir, the family service is concluded. If you have memories to share, perhaps at the repast." "No, this can't wait." Marcus walked to the front of the church with a folder in his hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but there's something everyone needs to know. Patricia and I had a very close relationship. She trusted me with her business, her dreams, and her final wishes." I felt Nicole's hand grip my arm. "Dad, what's he talking about?" Marcus opened the folder and pulled out papers. 3 months ago, Patricia revised her will. She named me as the primary beneficiary of Carter Consulting Group and all its assets. The business, the properties, the investments, everything. The church erupted. Voices talking over each other. Someone shouted, "What?" My son James stood up. "That's impossible. Mom would never." "I have the documents right here," Marcus continued, his voice rising over the chaos. "Signed by Patricia, witnessed by her attorney. She wanted me to have the business. We'd planned to expand internationally. This was always the plan. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My wife's casket was right there, 10 feet away, And this man was claiming she'd left him everything we'd built together? The pastor tried to restore order. Sir, this is neither the time nor the place. No, people need to know the truth. Marcus looked directly at me. Raymond, I'm sorry you have to find out this way, but Patricia and I discussed this extensively. She felt you'd be taken care of by her life insurance and the house. The business was our project. She wanted it to continue under my leadership. Our project. The words stabbed me like a knife between the ribs. Nicole was on her feet now, shouting, "You're lying. Mom would never do that to Dad. Never." James was demanding to see the papers. My brother Terence was cursing, being held back by his sons. The funeral had devolved into chaos, and all I could do was stare at my wife's casket and wonder if I'd ever known her at all. Security guards appeared from somewhere. The pastor pleaded for calm. Marcus was escorted out, still clutching his folder, still claiming legal right to my wife's legacy. We buried Patricia that day, but the nightmare was just beginning. That night, back at the house that suddenly felt like a mausoleum, I sat in Patricia's home office and looked around at everything she'd built. The diplomas on the wall, the photos of her with clients, with staff, with Marcus at various business events. So many photos with Marcus. James sat down next to me. "Dad, we need to call a lawyer. Mom's lawyer. Find out if what he said is true." What if it is true? The words came out hollow. What if she really did leave everything to him? Then we fight it. Dad, you were married for 42 years. You put money into that business. You have rights. Did I? I wasn't sure anymore. Wasn't sure of anything except that the woman I'd loved had taken secrets to her grave. The next morning, I called Patricia's attorney, Robert Chun. We'd met him once at a Christmas party 3 years ago. He'd handled Patricia's business contracts and legal documents. "Mr. Carter," he said when his secretary put me through, "I'm so sorry for your loss. Patricia was an exceptional woman. Mr. Chun, I need to know about my wife's will. Is it true she left her business to Marcus Wellington?" The pause on the other end told me everything. "Mr. Carter, I think you should come to my office. There are some things we need to discuss in person." I drove to downtown Manhattan with James and Nicole. We sat in Robert Chen's modern office with its view of the Hudson River, and he placed a thick folder on the desk between us. "I'm going to be direct with you," he said. "Yes, Patricia did revise her will 3 months ago. She transferred primary ownership of Carter Consulting Group to Marcus Wellington. She also transferred several investment accounts and properties to him." Nicole gasped. James slammed his fist on the desk. I just sat there, feeling my world disintegrate. "How much?" I heard myself ask. How much did she leave him? Approximately $47 million in total assets. The number was incomprehensible. $47 million. To a man who wasn't her husband, wasn't her family, wasn't the person who'd sacrificed everything to help her build that empire. "What about Dad?" James demanded. "What did she leave him?" Robert Chin looked genuinely pained. "The house in Westchester, which is valued at $2.3 million. A life insurance policy for $500,000. And a joint savings account with approximately $180,000. That's it." Nicole's voice cracked. "After 42 years of marriage? After everything Dad did for her?" "I advised Patricia against this arrangement," Robert Chun said carefully. "I told her it could be contested. I told her it would devastate her family. But she insisted. She said Marcus understood her vision in a way no one else did. She said he deserved to continue her legacy." James was pacing now. "We're contesting this. Dad has grounds. He contributed to that business. He's entitled to half of everything under marital assets. But I already knew it wouldn't be that simple. Patricia had been smart, brilliant even. If she'd wanted to protect those assets from me, she would have found a way. Mr. Carter, Robert Chun said gently, I need to tell you something else. Patricia set up the business structure very carefully. Carter Consulting Group was incorporated under her name alone. All assets were titled solely in her name. Technically, from a legal standpoint, it was her separate property, not marital property. He gave her the startup money, Nicole shouted. He gave her $50,000 from his pension, which she repaid to him 7 years ago, Robert Chun said, sliding another document across the desk. With interest. I have the bank records. I didn't remember her repaying me. Didn't remember having that conversation. But there it was in black and white. A transfer of $65,000 to our joint account, dated August 2016. She'd covered her tracks perfectly. There has to be something we can do, James insisted. This isn't right. This isn't fair. You can contest the will, Robert Chin said. But I'll be honest with you. It will be expensive, time-consuming, and unlikely to succeed. Patricia was mentally competent when she signed these documents. She wasn't coerced. She made her choices freely. We left that office in a daze. My children wanted to fight, wanted to hire lawyers and drag Marcus Wellington through every court in New York. But I was tired, so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of trying to understand how the woman I loved could have done this to me. That night, I sat alone in the house Patricia had bought with money from the business I'd helped her start. I looked at our wedding photos. Photos of us struggling through those early years. Photos of her success with me always standing slightly behind her, supporting her, believing in her. Then I opened her laptop. I knew her password, our anniversary date, 051580. The computer unlocked, and I saw her email was still logged in. I shouldn't have looked, should have respected her privacy even in death. But I needed to understand, needed to know why she'd done this. The emails to Marcus went back 4 years. Hundreds of them. Most were business-related, discussing clients and contracts and strategies. But then I found the others. I can't wait to see you in Chicago. These trips are the only time I feel truly alive. Raymond asked me again about taking a vacation. I feel guilty, but when I'm with him I just feel stuck, like I'm living in the past. You understand me in a way he never could. You see the real me, not just the wife who cooks dinner and does laundry. I felt sick, physically sick. I ran to the bathroom and vomited until there was nothing left but dry heaves and tears. My wife had been having an emotional affair. Maybe a physical one too, I didn't know, and at that point it didn't matter. She'd been in love with Marcus Wellington, and I'd been too blind, too trusting, too devoted to see it. I kept reading because I needed to hurt myself more, needed to understand the full scope of my stupidity. An email from 2 months before she died. I revised the will today. Robert Chin tried to talk me out of it, but I know this is right. You're my future, Marcus. You're my legacy. Raymond will be fine. He has the house and the insurance. He'll be comfortable. Comfortable. After 42 years of marriage, she thought leaving me comfortable was enough. The last email was dated a week before she got sick. I'm planning to ask Raymond for a divorce after the new year. I can't keep living this double life. I love you. I want to build a real life with you. Stephen will understand. You said he's suspected for months anyway. Let's stop hiding. So that was it. She'd been planning to leave me, to end our 42-year marriage so she could be with Marcus. The only reason she hadn't was because pneumonia had killed her first. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at that screen, watching my entire life story get rewritten. The love I'd thought was real had been dying for years. Maybe it had never been what I thought it was at all. James and Nicole came by the next morning and found me still in Patricia's office, surrounded by printed emails. "Dad, what is all this?" Nicole asked, picking up one of the papers. Then she read it, and her face went pale. "Oh, Dad. Oh no." We sat together, the three of us, reading through the evidence of Patricia's betrayal. My children were devastated. They'd idolized their mother, thought she was perfect. Now they were learning she was human, flawed, capable of cruelty. "We're fighting this," James said firmly. "Dad, we're going to fight this with everything we have." But I shook my head. "No. Let him have it." "What? Dad? No. Let him have it?" I repeated, my voice dead. "Let Marcus have the business and the money and everything else she wanted him to have. I don't want any of it. It's tainted. All of it. Dad, that's not rational. I don't care." The words exploded out of me. I don't care about the money. I don't care about the business. All I cared about was her, and she's gone, and she didn't love me the way I loved her, and I can't. I broke down completely. My children held me while I sobbed. For the first time since Patricia died, I let myself really grieve. Not just for her death, but for the death of everything I'd believed about our marriage. But Nicole was already reading more emails, her face getting harder with each one. "Dad, look at this. This one's from Marcus to Mom." She handed me a printed email dated 6 months earlier. "Patricia, we need to be more careful. Stephen is getting suspicious. He found a receipt from that weekend in Miami. I told him it was a business trip, but he's not stupid. Maybe we should cool things off for a while." And Patricia's response, "I understand. But Marcus, I can't lose you. You're everything to me. We'll be more careful. Stephen won't find out. And Raymond never suspects anything. He's so trusting, it almost makes me feel guilty. Almost." James read over my shoulder and cursed. "So Stephen doesn't know either. Marcus's partner doesn't know he was cheating." Something clicked in my brain. Marcus had lied about Stephen knowing. Had lied about being in an open relationship. Had lied about everything. "Dad," Nicole said slowly, "what if Marcus didn't inherit everything legally? What if he manipulated Mom? Maybe we do have grounds to contest." I looked at my daughter, saw the fire in her eyes, and felt something stir in me. Not quite hope, not quite anger, but something. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking Mom may have been having an affair, but she was also sick. She had pneumonia when she revised that will. What if she wasn't thinking clearly? What if Marcus pushed her to change it while she was vulnerable?" James caught on. "The timeline. When exactly did she change the will?" We checked the date on the documents Robertson had shown us. August 23rd, 3 months ago. Then I checked Patricia's medical records that I still had from her hospital stays. Her first bout of pneumonia, the one she'd recovered from, had started in late July. She'd been sick on August 23rd. Still on antibiotics. Still weak. "She wasn't in her right mind," Nicole said. "Dad, she was sick. Marcus knew she was vulnerable, and he convinced her to change the will. Maybe. Or maybe Patricia had known exactly what she was doing. But for the first time since Marcus had made his announcement at the funeral, I felt something other than despair. I felt angry. "Call Robertson," I said. "Tell him we're contesting the will. Tell him we're going to war." My children smiled. It was the first time any of us had smiled in 2 weeks. The legal battle began immediately. Robertson referred us to Harold Morrison, one of the best estate litigation attorneys in New York. Harold was in his 60s, black like me, with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Carter," he said at our first meeting. I'm going to be straight with you. Contesting a will is expensive and difficult. The burden of proof is on us. We need to show that Patricia either lacked mental capacity when she signed, or that she was unduly influenced by Marcus Wellington. We have evidence, James said, handing over the printed emails. Harold read through them carefully, his expression giving nothing away. When he finished, he sat back in his chair and steepled his fingers. This is good. This shows an inappropriate relationship that Patricia was hiding. It establishes that Marcus had emotional leverage over her. But it's not enough by itself. What else do we need? Nicole asked. Medical records showing Patricia's mental state was compromised. Witnesses who can testify that Marcus pressured her. Evidence that he isolated her from family. Documentation that she was confused or forgetful during the period she changed the will. I thought about the months before Patricia died. How she'd been distant, distracted. How she'd sometimes forget conversations we'd just had. I'd attributed it to stress from the business, but what if it was more than that? She was forgetting things, I said slowly. Little things at first. Where she put her keys. What day of the week it was. I thought it was just because she was working too hard. Did she see a doctor about it? No. She refused. Said she was fine. Harold made notes. We'll need to subpoena her medical records. See if there's any indication of cognitive decline. Over the next week, Harold's team worked like a machine. They subpoenaed Patricia's medical records. Interviewed her staff at Carter Consulting Group. Talked to our friends and neighbors. Built a timeline of Patricia's relationship with Marcus. What they found was damning. Patricia's medical records showed she'd been prescribed anti-anxiety medication 2 years ago for stress. The medication had side effects including memory problems and confusion. She'd also been diagnosed with early-stage pneumonia 3 times in the year before she died, not just the final 2 times. Each time, she'd been on strong antibiotics that could cause disorientation. Her staff told stories of Patricia seeming confused in meetings, missing appointments, forgetting details of contracts she'd negotiated herself. They'd attributed it to burnout, but in hindsight, it painted a picture of someone who wasn't functioning at full capacity. Marcus had been with her for every one of those medical appointments. Had been the one taking her to the pharmacy. Had been her primary support during her illness. Not me, her husband, who hadn't even known she was sick until it got severe. He'd isolated her. Slowly, carefully, over years. Made himself indispensable while making me irrelevant. We have a case, Harold said at our strategy meeting. A strong one. Marcus Wellington systematically positioned himself as Patricia's primary confidant while she was experiencing cognitive decline. He pressured her to change her will while she was physically and mentally compromised. And he did it all while hiding his romantic involvement with her. Can we win? I asked. Yes, I believe we can. Marcus, of course, didn't take our lawsuit lying down. He hired his own team of lawyers, expensive ones from a white shoe firm in Manhattan. They filed motions to dismiss, argued that Patricia had been a brilliant businesswoman who knew exactly what she was doing, painted me as a bitter husband trying to steal money that wasn't rightfully mine. The case made the news. Local papers picked it up first, then national media. Widow sues business partner over $47 million inheritance. My face was plastered across tabloids and websites. People I hadn't spoken to in years were calling, asking if I needed money, offering support, or worse, asking for interviews. I hated it. Hated being exposed like this. But Nicole and James reminded me why we were fighting. Mom would want this, Nicole said. The real mom. The woman who built that business. She wouldn't want Marcus to steal everything she worked for. Would she, though? I wasn't sure anymore. The woman I thought I knew wouldn't have had an affair. wouldn't have cut her husband out of her will, wouldn't have planned to divorce me after 42 years. Maybe I'd never known the real Patricia at all. The deposition came 3 months after Patricia's death. Marcus sat across a conference table from me for the first time since the funeral, flanked by his lawyers, looking confident and polished in an expensive suit. Harold Morrison led the questioning, and he was brutal. "Mr. Wellington, how would you characterize your relationship with Patricia Carter?" "We were business partners and close friends." "Just friends?" "Yes." Harold slid printouts of the emails across the table. "Are these your communications with Mrs. Carter?" Marcus's facade cracked slightly. "Yes, but those are taken out of context. In this email from March 15th you wrote, 'Last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you.' What was the context of that statement, Mr. Wellington?" His lawyers objected. Marcus stammered. But the damage was done. Harold pressed on. "You were present when Mrs. Carter revised her will in August, correct?" "I accompanied her to the lawyer's office, yes." "Mrs. Carter had pneumonia at that time, didn't she?" "She was recovering from a minor illness. According to medical records, she was still on antibiotics that list confusion and disorientation as side effects." "Did you discuss with Mrs. Carter that perhaps she should wait until she was fully recovered before making major legal decisions?" "She was lucid. She knew what she wanted." "Did she discuss this will change with her husband, her children, her family?" "I don't know what she discussed with her family." "Because she didn't discuss it with them at all, did she?" "Because you convinced her to do it secretly." The questioning went on for 6 hours. Marcus's story fell apart piece by piece. He admitted to the affair. Admitted he'd been with Patricia when she signed the new will. Admitted he hadn't disclosed the relationship to her family or to his own partner. My deposition was shorter and more painful. Marcus's lawyers tried to paint me as an absent husband who'd neglected Patricia while she built her empire. They brought up the fact that I'd stopped working full-time years ago. Suggested I'd been living off her money while contributing nothing. It hurt because some of it was true. I had let Patricia be the primary breadwinner. Had supported her career by taking a back seat in my own. In the eyes of these lawyers, that made me a freeloader. Harold objected, but I could see the argument they were building. I hadn't earned Patricia's fortune. Marcus had worked side by side with her. Maybe he deserved it more than I did. The trial began in June, 7 months after Patricia's death. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious onlookers, and both our families. Marcus's partner Stephen was there too. He looked destroyed. I felt sorry for him. He'd been betrayed just like me. Harold's opening statement laid out our case clearly. Patricia Carter had been a brilliant woman who'd suffered from health problems that affected her judgment. Marcus Wellington had taken advantage of her vulnerability to manipulate her into leaving him her fortune. This wasn't about honoring Patricia's wishes. This was about preventing theft. Marcus's lawyer countered that Patricia was a grown woman who'd made her own choices. She'd been clear-minded and decisive. She'd wanted Marcus to have her business because he shared her vision. Raymond Carter was trying to overturn his wife's expressed wishes out of spite. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Witness after witness took the stand. Patricia's doctor testified that the medications she'd been on could cause confusion and memory problems. Her staff testified that she'd seemed increasingly forgetful and distracted in the months before her death. Harold played the surveillance video from the lawyer's office the day Patricia signed the new will. She looked thin, sick, hesitant. Marcus was next to her, his hand on her shoulder, speaking to her quietly. It looked exactly like what it was. A man pressuring a sick woman to do something she wasn't sure about. Marcus's lawyers brought their own witnesses. Business associates who said Patricia had always planned to leave the company to Marcus. financial advisors who'd helped structure the transfers. Even Stephen, Marcus's partner, testified, though his statement backfired when he admitted he hadn't known about the affair and felt betrayed by Marcus's dishonesty. I didn't testify. Harold advised against it, said my emotions were too raw, that Marcus's lawyers would tear me apart on the stand. Instead, we let the evidence speak for itself. The jury deliberated for 2 days. 2 days of sitting in that courthouse hallway, barely eating, barely sleeping, wondering if I was about to lose the last bit of dignity I had left. Finally, the call came. The jury had reached a verdict. We filed back into the courtroom. Marcus sat with his lawyers, his face unreadable. I sat with my children, holding Nicole's hand so tight I was probably hurting her. The judge asked the jury foreman to read the verdict. In the matter of Raymond Carter versus Marcus Wellington, regarding the estate of Patricia Carter, we find in favor of the plaintiff. The courtroom erupted. Nicole burst into tears. James hugged me so hard I couldn't breathe. Harold Morrison allowed himself a small, professional smile. Marcus's face went white. His lawyers immediately started talking about appeals, but I could see he knew it was over. The judge continued. The court finds that the will dated August 23rd was executed under undue influence, and while the deceased lacked full mental capacity, the will is hereby declared invalid. The estate of Patricia Carter will be distributed according to the previous will dated 2016, which names Raymond Carter as the primary beneficiary. I had won. After 7 months of hell, I had won. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing in the ruins of everything I'd believed in and trying to figure out what to do with the ashes. Marcus left the courtroom without looking at me. His lawyers filed an appeal the next day, but Harold said it wouldn't go anywhere. The evidence had been too strong. The jury had been unanimous. Carter Consulting Group was mine now. All $47 million worth of assets. The business Patricia had built. The legacy she'd wanted to leave to her lover instead of her husband. I didn't want it. The week after the verdict, I called a meeting with Patricia's senior staff at the downtown office. There were 12 of them, people who'd worked with my wife for years, who'd helped build Carter Consulting Group into what it was. I know this has been a difficult time for everyone, I said, standing at the head of the conference table where Patricia had run so many meetings. The trial, the publicity, the uncertainty about the company's future. They nodded, watching me carefully. They probably thought I was going to sell the company or shut it down. I want you to know that I'm not Marcus Wellington, I continued. I'm not going to try to run this business. I don't have Patricia's vision or her expertise. But I do know that she built something remarkable here. Something that employed good people and served important clients. I paused, looking at each of their faces. So here's what's going to happen. I'm transferring 60% ownership of Carter Consulting Group to the employees. You 12, plus the other 8 staff members, will own the majority of this company. You'll elect a new CEO from among yourselves. You'll make the decisions about the company's future. The room was silent with shock. The remaining 40% will be split 3 ways. 20% to my daughter Nicole, who has an MBA and who Patricia always said had the best business mind in the family. 10% to my son James. And 10% to a scholarship fund I'm establishing in Patricia's name for young black women pursuing business degrees. One of the senior managers, a woman named Keisha who'd been with Patricia from the beginning, started crying. Mr. Carter, we don't know what to say. Say you'll keep building what Patricia started. Say you'll honor her real legacy, not the mess that Marcus and I fought over in court. They agreed. Within a month, the employee ownership structure was established. Keisha was elected CEO. The company not only survived but thrived. Turned out when people own their workplace, they work harder to make it succeed. I kept the house in Westchester, but I didn't live there anymore. Too many memories. Too many ghosts. I sold it for $2.8 million and bought a small ranch in North Carolina where my brother Terrence had retired. Somewhere quiet where I could think. Nicole and James both tried to convince me to keep more of the money for myself. "Dad, you deserve it," Nicole said. "After everything Mom did, after what Marcus tried to do, you deserve to live comfortably." "I am living comfortably, baby. I got more money than I know what to do with already. The life insurance, the savings, my pension. I'm 68 years old. How much do I need?" What I didn't tell them was that the money felt dirty. Every dollar of it reminded me of Patricia's betrayal, of the years I'd wasted thinking we had something we didn't. I wanted to turn it into something good, something clean. So I donated millions of dollars to charities, to churches, to organizations that helped elderly people protect themselves from financial abuse, to business programs for women, to nursing schools in Patricia's memory because she'd always respected nurses for the care they'd given her mother before she died. I kept enough to live on, to help my kids if they needed it, to enjoy my remaining years. But the rest, I gave it away, turned Patricia's fortune into something that actually helped people instead of just sitting in an account making me miserable. Marcus Wellington disappeared from New York after the trial. I heard through the grapevine that Stephen left him, took half their assets in their own settlement, and moved to Portland. Marcus tried to start another consulting business in Chicago, but his reputation was destroyed. Nobody wanted to work with the man who tried to steal a dead woman's fortune from her grieving husband. I didn't feel sorry for him. Should I have? Maybe. But I didn't. A year after Patricia died, I was sitting on the porch of my North Carolina ranch watching the sunset when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello, Mr. Carter? This is Stephen Holloway, Marcus Wellington's ex-partner." I sat up straight. "Mr. Holloway, I'm surprised to hear from you. I wanted to apologize. I know it's late. I know you probably don't want to hear from anyone associated with Marcus. But I need you to know that I had no idea what was going on. I swear to you, I didn't know about the affair or the will or any of it. I believe you. Marcus destroyed both our lives, yours and mine. And for what? Money he didn't even get to keep. Stephen, can I ask you something? Did you love him?" There was a long pause. "Yes, I did. For 15 years I loved him, trusted him, built a life with him. And it turns out I didn't really know him at all. I understand that feeling better than you know." We talked for over an hour. Two men who'd been betrayed by the same person, who'd lost the lives they thought they had. It was cathartic in a way I hadn't expected. "Mr. Carter," Stephen said before we hung up, "I hope you find peace. You seem like a good man who deserved better." "You too, Stephen. You too. I'd like to say that time healed all wounds, that I moved on completely and found happiness again. But that wouldn't be true. The truth is, I still think about Patricia every day. Still wonder which version of her was real. The woman who'd married me at 26 with stars in her eyes and promises on her lips? The woman who'd held my hand during hard times and built a business with my support? Or the woman who'd fallen in love with someone else and planned to leave me behind? Maybe all of those versions were real. Maybe people are complicated and contradictory and capable of both great love and great betrayal. I don't know. I'm 70 years old now, and I still don't have it figured out. What I do know is this: I survived. When everything I believed in crumbled, when I discovered that the foundation of my life was built on lies and half-truths, I didn't collapse. I stood up. I fought back. I took control of my own story. And maybe that's enough. I have good relationships with my children. James got married last year to a wonderful woman named Keisha. Not the same Keisha who runs Carter Consulting Group, but that's a funny coincidence. Nicole is being considered for a VP position at a Fortune 500 company. They visit me in North Carolina regularly. We barbecue, we fish, we talk about their mother without the anger that used to poison every memory. I've made friends here. My brother Terrence lives just 20 miles away. We play cards twice a week. I joined a church where the people don't know my story and don't care about my money. I'm just Raymond, the retired construction worker who shows up on Sundays and helps with the food pantry. Sometimes, late at night, I still look at the wedding photo I kept. Patricia in her white dress. Me in my rented tux. Both of us so young and full of hope. And I think about the life we had before everything went wrong. Those early years were real. The struggle was real. The love was real. And even if it got corrupted later, even if she changed or I missed the signs or both of us just grew apart, those early years still matter. They're still part of my story. I forgive her. Not because what she did was okay. Not because it didn't devastate me. But because holding on to anger was killing me slowly. And I chose to live instead. Marcus Wellington can rot in whatever life he's built for himself. The money's gone. The reputation's destroyed. He'll have to live with what he did for the rest of his days. As for me, I wake up every morning in my little ranch house, make myself coffee, and watch the sun come up over the Blue Ridge Mountains. I think about the 70 years I've lived, the lessons I've learned, the battles I've won and lost. And I'm grateful. Grateful I stood up for myself. Grateful I fought back when someone tried to take what was mine. Grateful I turned Patricia's fortune into something that helps people instead of letting it destroy me. My name is Raymond Carter. I'm 70 years old. And at my rich wife's funeral, her lover stood up and tried to steal everything we'd built together. But he didn't succeed. Because I fought back. Because I had the courage to face the truth, as painful as it was. Because I refused to let betrayal be the end of my story. There's a lesson in that, I think. Life will knock you down. People you love will disappoint you. The foundations you built your world on will sometimes crumble. But you have a choice. You can stay down or you can get back up. I chose to get up. And if you're listening to this from wherever you are in the world, dealing with your own betrayal, your own heartbreak, your own shattered dreams, I want you to know, you can get up too. It won't be easy. It'll hurt like hell. But you're stronger than you think. More resilient than you know. Fight for yourself. Fight for your dignity. Fight for your right to live free from people who would use you and discard you. Patricia used to say, "Success is the best revenge." She was wrong about that. Success isn't revenge at all. Surviving is. Thriving is. Living well is. And brother, sister, whoever you are, I'm living well now. Finally. Truly. For the first time in years, I'm living for myself. That's my story. That's how the man who stood up at my wife's funeral and claimed her fortune ended up with nothing, while I ended up with everything that actually matters. If you liked my story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this one. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I'm always curious to know where my stories reach. What would you do in this person's place? Would you have fought for the inheritance? Or would you have walked away? I would love to hear your opinion, so please share it with me in the comments. And remember, never let anyone make you feel like you don't deserve dignity, respect, and justice. No matter how long you've been together, no matter how much you've sacrificed, you are worth more than what anyone can take from you. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With heartfelt greetings until next time.